I think projects such as SheSails and the Magenta project are doing such great things of making opportunities open to female sailors to get their foot in the door and build some experience.
It's so great to see all of the initiatives that Australian Sailing is putting in place to achieve gender parity.
And then, you know, on the other hand, it's really amazing to see the Volvo Ocean Race, the America's Cup and SailGP make space for female athletes right at the pinnacle of the sport.
It's going to be a massive moment for women in sailing. We've been waiting for this moment. We've been training for this moment. We've always had the Olympics and it's been expanding, but it's a time where women have the first look into one of the pinnacles in our sport.
Sailing is an incredible sport, like you all know, and we have the ability to be super inclusive. I cannot wait to see where sailing and where Australian sailing takes us in the future.
And so I think, you know, between the grassroots and those top entities working together, making space for female sailors is really what's going to help us balance out the gender imbalance at the moment in sailing.
And it's not just about us, it's about the future generations and having something for them to aspire to and keep on pushing to be the best sailors they can be.
Happy International Women's Day.
Great, thank you and welcome everyone. I'm so glad you could make it on this eve of International Women's Day. That was a short video that Nick and Bo have put together, which is amazing. Of just seeing a few of our high-performing athletes, Nina Curtis, Lisa Damanen, and our coaches, Amelia Cat, talking just about how important it is to inspire the next generation. So welcome. I'm so glad everyone could join us this evening. We've got a great lineup of speakers tonight, all inspiring inclusion in their own different ways, which is fantastic, from our last year SheSails winners of RAM and from our female Commodores to our male skippers that we're talking tonight. They're all inspire inclusion in their own different ways. Before we start there, I'd like to just acknowledge the Boonwurrung people of who I'm meeting with tonight on their land, and recognise the traditional owners and custodians of the land and waterways where you are also all living, working or sailing this evening. I'd like to pay my respects as well to elders past, present and emerging. I'm going to hand over to Nick Douglas, who is our host for this evening. Nick, for those of you who don't know, Nick is an amazing sailor in her own right. She's a little pocket rocket for those who haven't met her. She is amazing and so inspirational in the diversity and inclusion space. She is an amazing journalist and media commentator, been commentating at SailGP just recently, as well as the last Tokyo Olympics. And I'm pleased to say she is our SheSails ambassador this year, which is fantastic, as she won the SheSails award for New South Wales last year for the state and was a national finalist. So we're very pleased that Nick has agreed to be our SheSails ambassador this year. So over to you, Nick.
Oh, thank you so much, Sue. It's so lovely to be here and to be inspiring inclusion in our own ways. I mean, I think there's a lot of us who are working hard, whether it's from the grassroots all the way through to that elite level that you saw. And a lot of us and a lot of people that you will hear from tonight are seeing it in very different ways. There's over 100 of you that have registered. 12% are male, which is great, because for me personally, it's not just about SheSails, but the supporters and those that are helping us to carve out our place and to move forward, and and letting us do what we do, or letting us just get on with it. So that's really exciting to me as well. So you'll see the program here. I'm not going to run you through the program because I'm going to just get into it. And first off, we have our amazing RAMP program, who were the winners of the National SheSails Award. It stands for Racing and Mentoring Program. So we will get Kate and Amanda up on the screen just to run us through the RAMP program. A little bit later, as you heard, we'll have our skippers, and then we'll also have our amazing Commodores, and Tash will join us as well. She's at a family dinner, so fingers crossed it all works out. But for those who want to ask questions, you will see that there is a question bar at the bottom. We'll be filtering those questions as we go, and at the end, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions as well. You'll also see there's a chat function, so you can say hi, and we'd love for you to tell us where you're watching from and maybe how many people you've got, because while we've got over 100 registrations, we do know that there are a lot of people who are actually watching from a club. So yeah, very, very exciting. Do we have Amanda on the screen as well? I can't see her.
She was having some technical issues, so I'm hoping she's going to jump up. Oh, there she is.
I
think
she's coming back. It's all good. I'll just jump straight in. I'll just jump straight in. So excellent. Well, I'll just jump straight in with Kate, and we'll let the tech guys do what they do in the back end. For those who don't know, Kate is an amazing sailor. She's worked for Australian Sailing before. Now you're in Western Australia, and she's balanced everything all day with her child, who's 6 months old. Kate, why did you get involved with RAMP? Why, what is it all about for those who don't know?
Yeah, thanks. Look, like you said, RAMP is an acronym for the Racing and Mentorship Program. I do think Amanda is somewhere here. She might just have a voice that appears, but I don't think her camera's working. At the moment, they're made up of 6 volunteers, and I'm kind of on sabbatical at the moment because, as you said, I've had a baby. And essentially, RAMP is there to integrate women and support women into sailing and developing their skills if they want to continue into the racing aspect as well, and upskilling those. And also just to integrate them into the club and the social aspect of it, because a lot of the time that gets missed, and we focus a lot on just on racing, essentially. The activities that we do at the moment are twilighting, once a month development sessions on club boats, entering club boats into races and local regattas, forming teams for state championships, national championships, putting together qualified members through Australian Sailing Coaching, hosting on-water community events, RSL Active, Enterprise Initiative, and there's a Pacer Dash tomorrow. So it's a lot, yeah.
That's so much. I can't even keep up with it. But essentially, it's about mentoring women to find a place, because I think that's something that we've all recognised, that there are places there, but having the gumption or the opportunity or the confidence to push forward can sometimes be an issue.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, the reality is, Nick, that women are underrepresented in organised sport, and we saw that there was a space we saw a space available at Fremantle Sailing Club where we could assist with this. So that is supporting women into and developing sailing at Fremantle Sailing Club. We also know that there are a number of barriers to participation. Clearinghouse have done some organised some reports on this, and that are now strategic for Australian Sports Commission. So we really did focus on making sure women feel safe when they join our program, making sure they don't feel peer pressured, making sure that cost is not such a barrier.
Yeah.
And the success of it, if I'm just going to go into the next question, sorry.
No,
the success
go for
of it has really been down to not actually understanding that, but then also not asking the club for money, just getting it underway, using what assets are available at the club already, and being a working group and not kind of getting tied up in the politics of the club, if you will. So just there to literally just make it happen. So that's helped with the success of it. Yeah.
So I guess, and you've gone on to some of the barriers as well. And I think something that we do as women is go forward with solutions as opposed to seeing the problems that might be firsthand. So is that something that's been of benefit, and maybe something that could be replicable for others? Is literally just going to your board with the solution?
Yeah, look, there's 2 parts to that question. So first of all, yeah, it is definitely replicable. The importance is the people that are involved in it. So we know that staff are really under the pump in yacht clubs, generally any sporting clubs actually, and they're spread pretty thin. The challenge has been, like any sport, new initiatives are amazing, but the man or woman power really required to get them off the ground is enormous. So there's a heavy reliance on volunteers. People are also really quick to judge. If you're not making news by the end of the first season, then people kind of think it's not a thing, it's not happening. So we really strive to make it a 3-year initiative to see if it was going to thrive. And I think we have definitely done that, but the club and Ramp have really been united on that fact that it's going to take at least 3 years to get this kind of going. Another challenge is how to be able to communicate to people effectively. And Stack App has been a really good way to communicate with people, making not putting pressure on people. If you're available, you're available. If you're not, you're not. The second part of that is, can it be replicated? Absolutely, it can definitely be replicated. The biggest hurdle, like I said, is that volunteer or man, woman power, and staying true to the cause, not getting distracted by, let's win this title, let's do this, the purpose is to get more women on the water, make sure that they actually enjoy sailing. Any club can achieve this. How we went about this is over the 3-year plan. Year 1, we created a culture and awareness of the program. We ironed out any teething issues. Year 2, we created the leaders and we expanded the vision. And the 3rd year, we're under review and we're looking at the past 2 years. How can we adjust and evolve the program to suit the needs of the club? That's where we're at the moment.
Is that all you did? I'm sorry. Congratulations.
Sorry.
But congratulations to you and to all. I mean, as you said, a hefty amount of volunteers. But you've obviously gone forward with a clear plan. I think we know it's replicable, and every club is doing things in their own way. What is something that you would say is something that every single club could actually just put in place tomorrow from your experience over this 3-year initiative?
I
can jump in, I think. Can I
go, Amanda? Our voiceless human. Just move your mouth. Move your mouth straight.
I'm not sure what's happened with my camera. It was working and now it's not. Anyway, I think one of the sort of like the most interesting things that's come of this is basically putting out an expression of interest that reached the wider population, not just people at our club, but people in our community. And within weeks, we had people asking about our club and asking to be a part of what we were creating. So something you could do tomorrow is get a SurveyMonkey account or Google Forms and get somebody to ask important questions that are important for your club, and just put it out there and see what people want.
No, that's really valuable. What people want. Sometimes we can go off on tangents, I guess. So we don't have any questions from the floor, so I will just remind everybody you can use that Q&A chat if you would like to, and we'd love to hear where you're watching from. But Amanda, one from you now that we know that we can hear you. How can people in WA get involved if they're watching this but they haven't necessarily actually heard of Ramp yet?
Yeah, so in WA, on the local level, as in if you live in Freo or you're a Fremantle Sailing Club member, you just fill out that expression of interest and let us know what it is that you want to achieve. And we will get back to you. In WA, there is a WA Sailing Summit on June 15th that we will be presenting some of our findings at. So we've had 94 women fill out an expression of interest over about a 1.5 year period, or since 2021. And there's a lot of really valuable information there as to what people want out of their sailing. And then I think probably on a bigger picture, you can just, it's really easy to get involved. I think we had the luxury of member support, board support, CEO support from Australian Sailing, support from our members, support from the boating office. I think people would probably be really happy to support an initiative like this at their club.
Yeah. So main tips from you guys as I wrap up with you, and we're going to move into our next section. I guess go with solutions. Ask your members what they actually want. That's a good tip. And go out wider than your actual sailing community. I guess getting more people involved in the sport. Women are a good example of that. I think the numbers of golf over COVID almost tripled because a lot more females got involved with the sport. So it shows you the power of women getting involved as well, which is super exciting. So Kate and Amanda will be sticking around until the end if anybody does think of a burning question that they want to ask them. So please do keep that in mind. And I think what we'll do after this as well is give you the ability when you're watching to get in touch with Kate or Amanda if you've got questions about how to replicate this. So we're going to move on now to our skippers. Thank you guys. To our skippers and supporters section, which is super important to me because I know that there are a lot of guys that make their boats available, make positions available, or are doing things to help facilitate women's regattas in that regard. So we have three amazing gentlemen who will come on the screen with me very shortly. We have Adrian, who's dialing in from South Australia, who some of our South Australian viewers may know. We have Richard Hudson, who's right there on the screen, who is from New South Wales. He's from Royal Prince Alfred. And there's Adrian waving. And our last person to join our panel here will be Mr. Anthony Kirke from Western Australia. So I'm not going to introduce each of these gents because we'll just run out of time so quickly because we do only have an hour. But I am going to start off right off the bat with Richard Hudson, who has a boat called Pretty Woman. And my question for you is going to be, why are women valuable members of your crew? I know that you do choose to sail with women a lot.
Nick, it's an interesting question. I did have a bit of a heads up on the question, so I pondered the answer. I take the view that all the members of the crew are valuable and the women members of the crew are equally valuable. What I find is that, in the offshore races where we have a high percentage of women crew, that you really don't ever notice there's a difference. So everyone contributes equally, and it's just fact we're all in the team together. And I think also it does improve the culture of the boat as well, having the women on board. And as you know, I'm a great supporter of it and will continue to be.
A great supporter, and not only has trained up many women sailors that have gone on to amazing things like Alice Parker, who just came second on IRC in the Hobart, but you donate your boat every Tuesday. Well, it's every second Tuesday, actually. Yep. And I've actually gone sailing with you, full female crew for the Twilight on Tuesday. They dock out, they dock in, they do everything on board. I mean, that's very generous.
And the good thing about that, Nick, too, is that as you met, a lot of them are new to sailing. So it's, women who've had other commitments and haven't been able to get out on the water and now make a big effort to get out on the Tuesday nights. And many of them are learners, and it's been interesting to observe over this season how their skills have improved. People that knew nothing about it are now able to get that boat around the track. Probably they could do it without me. Maybe they'd do better. So.
Well, they do very well on a Tuesday night, but I'm not sure if they do better. You're being very humble, Mr. Richard. but now I'm going to move on.
I'll just say something else, if I may. It's a bit off topic.
No, go for it.
I know Alistair, our president of Australian Sailing, is watching, and I'm a director of Australian Sailing. And I might add that up until recently, we had a majority of women on the board of Australian Sailing, and I think Alice will support me in saying we'll be continuing to achieve that. But one thing I'd observed is that it provides a good insight, different than if you have a board of males as opposed to having the women there. And I found it a very positive thing to have that interaction on the board. So you can all know that we're onto it.
100%. And we will lead into our next section. We have two female Commodores who are exceptional business people, as well as being excellent leaders, and it doesn't really matter what their sex is. As you said, you don't even notice once you get going. And so I'm going to go to Anthony now, who's a big supporter of ramp. So this actually leads on. He's the Vice Commodore of Fremantle, and it's lovely to have you joining us, Anthony. A bit earlier for you, but but I mean, with your program, you're basically giving 2 places on key events. You're actually leading the offshore series at the moment as well. What have you learned, I guess, having these women involved? What could other gentlemen like yourself learn, or what would they get from giving places to women to help train them up?
I think one of the things is there's a misconception that particularly on a boat like a Fast 40, that you need to have a whole lot of muscle to be able to contribute. And I'd say that's the minority that you really require. It's it is the smarts, it is a real sail understanding. And it is like with any crew that we bring on, and we do try out people, but a lot of people. But people who know how to sail can really hop on those extreme boats and contribute as equally as anybody else. And I think the thing for us then is it actually then gives them confidence to go and have a go at trying to sail on those more extreme boats.
100%. And in speaking to you in the lead up to this, you will have a few females sailing with you on the weekend, and your daughter, who grew up sailing, hasn't sailed for a number of years. And she might come out with you this weekend because you've got women on the boat.
Yeah, she certainly is coming out on Sunday. I haven't told Amanda this, but I'm relying on the 2 ramp participants that she's sending with us on Sunday to convert her back to sailing. So.
They'll be there.
They'll be there, says Amanda. She's still listening. But I think the important bit about that, and Kate brought it up and Amanda brought it up in the last section, is that social aspect as well. And I know that we spoke about this, Anthony, that, there does need to be a little bit more social aspect involved with the boat. And as Richard had, the twilight with the women coming, even though they're brand new to sailing, they walk away with lifelong friends essentially because they've gone and battled all of the elements. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, look, I think it is one of the things I'm seeing is the social aspect. Sailing is going back to that is actually becoming one of the more important aspects, and hardcore racing is becoming less and less what's attracting people to the sport. And really, we've got to actually redesign the sailing we're doing. Got to bring the social aspect, and the social aspect's got to involve 50% of male and female. Now, it's socialising with all males is pretty dull and boring.
That's kind of how the real world works, and that's why I wanted to have you involved, because it's not just about all men or all women, it's about a mixed sport and getting to that gender equality. And so on that, I'm going to come over to Adrian, who is heavily involved with SAUCA. See, I got it right, Adrian, I promised, which is the South Australian Women's Keelboat Regatta. What got you guys down in SA interested in doing an all-women's keelboat regatta? And I mean, it's growing from strength to strength.
Hi, Nick. Look, a bunch of us have been going to the Melbourne event, the Australian Women Keelboat Regatta, for many, many years. And when COVID hit, of course, Melbourne closed down and Mooloolaba started up and Darwin started up. So a group of us got together and said, hey, there's a big hole here. We had the October long weekend. We picked that. And honestly, we were looking to get 10 boats in our first regatta. We ended up with 19. And last year we ended up with 31 boats. So it's just been exponential, and it's just brilliant. The women are trying stuff they've never tried before. They've come from boats where they weren't allowed to go on the main. At this time, they have to go on the main because there's not a male on board. So it's just been, and the enthusiasm and the joy in the afternoon prize giving is just unbelievable. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's so special, Adrian. And as you say, it's the skills are there and the potential is there, but when the opportunity is in front of them, perhaps that's something that, we could all do better.
And look, I want to relay a story. After our first regatta, I had one of the competitors come up to me and she said, look, before this started, I was very, very skeptical if this was going to work, because I'm a woman on a sailing boat. I do my thing. Why do we have to have a women's regatta? So she was one of the biggest critics. And after the regatta, she came up and said, look, I get it now. I had done things on this regatta I have never done before. And I went, fantastic. That made it all worthwhile. Just that one comment. It was brilliant.
Just that one comment. And I actually have a question from the floor that I'm going to pick up straight away. And a big hello to everybody. We've got people watching from Keppel Bay to Fremantle. Al Murray is watching, as you mentioned, Richard Hudson, now the Australian Sailing President, all the way around the country, Blair Gowrie. But we have a question specifically for you, Adrian. How many women from your regatta have perhaps taken the plunge to actually go and buy a boat?
We have 8 boat owners, 8 women boat owners in our regatta.
Woohoo!
We also have a prize for the most successful skipper of the regatta, owner of the regatta. So we're trying to encourage boat ownership. And of course, the big thing is, of course, we've got to borrow boats. So one of the things we have to do is convince men to let up their boats. And last regatta, as I said, we had 31 boats, and I think 10 of which were given up by men and 2 up by women owners. So it worked out pretty well.
That's incredible. And that's why it's important to give you guys a shout out, and any guys who are watching. 12% of those who registered are gentlemen. So we thank all of those who are supporting women to push forward as well. But I guess now that I'm going to give this as an open question, because I don't have any more from the floor, but I mean, what's the biggest thing that you've learned that you would want to tell other gentlemen about having women on your boat or being involved with an all-female regatta? And I'm happy for any of you to answer that, or all.
I'll have a go.
Go, Adrian.
My number one is, if a woman shows up on your boat and she wants to do something, enable her to do that. So give her an opportunity, train her up, because she might be the best crew on the whole boat. But it's when we put anyone aside, really, women or men, because we look at what their ability, or what they think their ability is, and we don't give them a chance. So when I moved over to South Australia 14 years ago, I had no crew. So I advertised, and as people showed up, I said, what would you like to do? And that's how I got a mainly female boat, because people went, oh, I can actually go on Adrian's boat and pick a position. So that's a big takeaway for me.
That's awesome. Any others like to add? No?
Yeah, Nick, I will add. I do think it makes a significant difference on the culture on the boat once you have a mixed crew on the boat. Yeah, and my experience is, it really does, build the team, and at the end of the day, it's no good having a whole bunch of high-profile athletes who don't get on with each other on a boat. You actually really need a team to sail a boat, and I think having a mix really helps build that team.
Yeah. Well said, Anthony. I agree.
And I think just listening to you guys, some of the biggest things potentially are let people do what they might want to do. Look at the potential of a crew member, regardless of their sex, not their ability. And I think that the social aspect and the culture and the family is what keeps us coming back. I think when I spoke to all 3 of you and all the other panelists, the reason why we're so passionate about sailing is because of the connections that we make doing it. I mean, we love being on the water too. That's why we have a common bond, but that social aspect as well is probably why we have so many people watching us online. So, but thank you, gentlemen. We're going to hold you on the line if that's okay. So if anybody's got any burning questions, we will have these gentlemen up at the end. And I'm just going to give a readout to everybody that's watching as well. Goolwa, South Australia, Dover, Tasmania. I've mentioned Keppel Bay. We've got a group watching from Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron, Parkdale, Victoria as well. So thanks everybody for joining wherever you are watching. Our next segment is with 2 amazing female Commodores. From Royal Brighton Yacht Club, we have Niesje Hees, and from the Canberra Yacht Club, we have Sue Hart. And from our gentlemen who are doing an amazing job to support women on the water, we also have some amazing females that are at the top of their game, essentially, both Niesje and Sue, but they're there because they're exceptionally capable and it really has nothing to do with their sex. So I think I'll lead. Yeah, I got nods from Sue, so I'll lead off with Niesje, and I'm going to just get straight into the questions if you're cool with that. And I know we've all spoken offline, so Niesje, what advice would you give to other women who want to become a flag officer or a Commodore, and what kind of skills are important or required?
Yeah, Nick, we did talk about this, and I sort of reflected on the fact that most of us are in a yacht club because we enjoy sailing, but there's so much more to being in a yacht club, and it pays to be a bit of a generalist, and a generalist means that you're not really an expert in anything. So I think a yacht club is full of experts. If you look at, I know when I became Commodore, I didn't know much about marinas or a lot of the other infrastructure, and I've learned a lot, but mainly I've learned who the subject matter experts are in the club and how to mobilize them. So I think I really related to what Kate and Amanda were saying earlier. It's about mobilizing people. And often women, have had roles in business or in other aspects of their lives where they've been doing that. And it's really no different. So, there's nothing magical about being Commodore of a yacht club. It's like any leadership role, any organizing role, any management role. So I think anyone can do it if they want to do it. And I know these days in yacht clubs and in sporting clubs in general, it's hard to find volunteers. If you've got a curious mind and an enthusiasm and passion, people will let you do it.
Yeah, that you say let you do it, and I'll flip over to Sue here because they've let her be Commodore of Canberra Yacht Club for a while, but you're a powerhouse, and I guess I'll lead into the same question because I know that you've got a lot of roles on boards, and that's what has made you perfect for the job. It's got nothing to do with your sex. Oh, I think you're muted. It's all good. One person had to do it.
I'm going to buy one of those T-shirts that says "Just unmute." I think after all these years, I'd be good at this. Yes, the gender has absolutely zero to do with being a Commodore, and my advice would be just do it if you want to do it. I agree with Niesje's comments. You need to be a bit of a generalist. You need to be able to just see the best in people, get the best out of people. I was really lucky. I've been on the board or around the board of Canberra Yacht Club on our paddle of a lake here, and we are since about 2005. I started off as the Rear Commodore operations, which meant I ran the sailing school. So I didn't come in frequently on boards like this, and in male-dominated areas, we'll put a token woman on, and she can look after member operations, the soup on a Sunday, cook the barbecue, that sort of stuff. And I have, in my time, been obsessive about not doing that. But coming in for me in the really early days as sailing school Rear Commodore was just set me up perfectly. And I was very lucky to be mentored in those days by Nick knows this person. He's since died, unfortunately, but he was a gun sailor, former Commodore through some very difficult times in our club. And he encouraged me to step out from behind the I'm just a female mentality, which so many women have, and to just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was a legend. And for those who are watching, shout out to Pillow. We loved him dearly. But Niesje, and I guess that's a question that a lot of people have. Do you have real authority? Is it token, as Sue mentioned? What barriers do you meet in that regard?
Yeah, I think being Commodore in general varies, and it's changed over the years as well. It doesn't have the prestige and status that it used to have. And at the same time, it's as much work as you want to put into it, really. Depending on the club. I mean, a lot have general managers and paid staff, other flag officers, members of committee. You can get as involved as you want. You can just be a figurehead, I guess. I don't see much satisfaction in that, or you can be really involved in what the club's doing. I think the key role of the Commodore really is cultural leadership, no matter what else you get involved in. And that's, about about understanding that the club is the place that people want to be. I mean, you know, people walk into the club and you feel that the values of the club are something you're proud of, and and that's what I'm really passionate about. So, you know, when new members join, and I generally talk to them, interview them. Well, interviews, you know, more like meet them, just to make sure that they feel welcome and included. And we're talking about women in sailing, but I think it's about anyone in the community feeling like they can walk into a yacht club and be part of it. A lot of you have referred to new people who are new to sailing as adults, and I think that's a trend, not just women, but men as well. It used to be that, you know, there were sailing families, you know, parents would be sailing and their kids would sail and so on through generations. Now we've got a lot more adults who are new to sailing, and we need to make them feel welcome. And I think that encourages women, but also all sorts of people. And that's the thing I'm passionate about. So I think as Commodore, you've got that ability to influence. And it's not always easy. But, you know, if you've got members who've been there for generations, just to sort of slowly and make sure the club is the way that you want it to be.
Yeah, 100%. So you mentioned one thing, you know, meeting new members to make it feel more inclusive. It's so Niesje, happy for either to take this, but what steps has your club put in place, I guess, whether it's regulatory or my words are brilliant tonight, regulatory, or you know, just off the cuff like that, what have you put in place to be more inclusive?
So we've been really almost obsessive about this, because we've got a small gene pool. There's an awful lot of things that kids and adults can do within very easy striking distance in Canberra, so you've got to be pretty diligent. As I said, we're a club, we've been here for 65 years as a key part of the Canberra community, but we look at inclusion of not just women in. So we've brought SailGP, which was a standalone organisation in Canberra, into being a program of the Canberra Yacht Club. We were the first, or one of the first, to run Buoyed Up, which is our program, which we take disadvantaged kids and kids at risk from school, bus them to us, teach them to sail. And that's been fantastic. Both of those programs have brought a whole range of people to us who would never have sailed, males and females. And for me, sailing is thought of as a rich man's sport, rich white man's sport. And for me, it's breaking down those barriers. The other things we've done that we're diligent on is our sail training program. We're one of the biggest sail training clubs in Australia. So we do a very gentle work on the mums of the kids who are sailing. And we've converted quite a number of the mums to go, this looks like fun, I might come down. And most recently, we were completely oversubscribed. And as a result, I talked to my general manager and the board, and we've now started to do SheSails Friday afternoons after work, come down 5:30. We have the boats rigged, and it's, again, been widely oversubscribed. Then they say for some nibbles and drinks, and it's just transformed that Friday night. Interesting to see how many of the old members, you know, long-term members, are now have come down, and they're taking people out in their boats, and it's been a real impetus for us to get off our bums and take that step. We've been arguing the toss on the board for a long time as to how to go, and this SheSails initiative has been fantastic for us.
Amazing. So basically reinvigorating current members as well. Niesje.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds fantastic. And I think yacht clubs have that challenge of making sure that they're sort of true to the history of the club. I mean, Royal Brighton is 150 years old next year, and I'm the second female Commodore.
Congratulations.
But we have a lot of really rich history, and we want to preserve that and honor it, but at the same time, not be a stuffy elitist club. So it's getting the balance right. And I know that the members we're also it's very important to reach out to the community. And I think community engagement is something that we've gotten much more enthusiastic about, I guess, in recent years. And it's amazing, you know, members of the local community come in and they didn't even know they could come into the yacht club before. What happens with that is they get interested in the history of the club. So it actually preserves the club in a way because it's new to them and they find that exciting. So getting that balance right to keep, the old members, if you like, feeling like it's their club, as it has been for generations, and at the same time welcoming the new members is actually good for both, as Sue said.
That's amazing. And we do have a question from the floor from Alistair Murray. He says, so do you see you guys or see yourselves as trailblazing or just being good Commodores?
No, not trailblazing. I come from, as Niesje would as well, a long line of very good Commodores. I guess I do a lot of this governance work. I don't see it as being trailblazing. I see it as just putting back into my community and into the sport that I love and the sport that my kids and my family love. So I believe that you have to put back into, and everybody on this call is the same. So it's not about trailblazing. It's just about making your contribution.
Yeah, and that was my. Yeah, that was my last question, Niesje, which we've spoken about too. What do you get out of it, essentially? And that's sort of the question too.
Exactly what Sue just said. I feel I could have said. I agree with that 100%. And what I get so much out of it myself. I've learned so much. This is my second year as Commodore. I'll be handing over to someone who's Vice Commodore now, and will continue to contribute to the club after that. And yes, I do see it as just making a contribution to a club that I've been a member of for 32 years and have gotten a lot out of it.
Yeah,
I've learned a lot about sailing, but I've learned an awful lot about other aspects of the club as well.
Yeah, and for me, it's not about being Commodore. It's not about me. It's about the club. It's about me giving my best and my expertise. One of the things that's been interesting is the way that I've been able to bring blokes on, and because I do governance stuff, I can sort of mentor them through it and give them a learning experience as well. And I think it's an important thing that you do as a leader, no matter what the field.
That's really awesome, and I think that we can definitely say you're amazing Commodores, not just women Commodores. But I knew you two would get on too. They hadn't met before this evening, and I knew they'd be very good on
I'm going to come and visit you, Niesje.
I love it.
Great.
Which is great. So I'm going to leave you two, but we'll see you at the end. And if anybody has any burning questions at the end, we'll pick that up. But we're going to go straight into our video to introduce our next speaker, who is Tash Bryant. She's on the line to chat about her win in the Australian SailGP. So we'll go to that video as soon as we can and come back with Tash Bryant.
I first went sailing on Pittwater on the northern beaches just north of Sydney Harbour. My family were sailors and we lived really close to the water and close to the local sailing club, and so that's where I started. Make sure that you love the sport you're doing and keep going if that's the way it is. Probably sunny day, good breeze, 15 plus knots. Flat water is nice, but obviously anything makes it interesting. I'd love to still be sailing and hopefully driving one of these boats one day.
Yeah, we're doing that. Okay, two, probably low out of this. Angle. Lovely. So if we do a little upwind, get above the star line, and then we can do like. Careful with it. Hey, follow. You can come down a bit, guys. It's gonna be. Hey, no, slower, middle. Pass, mate. Yeah. Nice work.
And Genesis Island, I'm sure you might have noticed, an Aussie sport.
So good. So good. I think that was a lovely weekend for everyone last weekend, but you may have seen that Tash is not only involved with the Australian SailGP team. Hi, Tash. She's also currently on the squad for Team Australia Challenge. Tash, how you going?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you, Nick?
I'm good. Thanks for joining, even though I know that you have a family dinner tonight. I got in big trouble from your dad. But anyway, we've got you, and that's fantastic, because I know there's a lot of people who want to congratulate you first and foremost, but also hear about what you're doing. And I mean, you're racing with the boys at such a high level. You know, how does that work, I guess, first and foremost?
Yeah, well, I always like to say I was extremely lucky and in the right place at the right time. When foiling kind of started here in Australia, I learned how to foil on the IQ foil, which is a windsurfing class, but I also foiled wasps, moths. I kind of did a little bit of everything. Mostly through COVID and lockdown at home, I tried to learn a few new skills, much like everyone else. But I threw myself into more sailing, which was really fun. But yeah, like I said, right place, right time. I knew how to foil. I had quite a bit of sailing experience in different backgrounds, mostly fast boats, which was handy too. And SailGP had created a women's pathway program, and they called out for applications for people in different countries where the teams were from. And so obviously Australia have quite already an amazing team with SailGP, and they called out for 5 of us to trial in WASPs in Sydney Harbour back in the start of 2021, I think it was. So quite a few years ago now. But that was how I was initially introduced into racing in SailGP. And I didn't actually get through the first selection trials. I knew how to foil and everything, but I'd only ever met Tom once. And so it was quite interesting. When you're in a team dynamic, you have to obviously get along with everyone and learn how everyone works. And I was quite young then, and probably a very risky choice for them to join them for like 8 months straight up. And that's okay. I learned how to foil more and practiced at home, and I had the opportunity to join them in the San Francisco final, not last year, but the year before, so the end of season 3. Or end of season 2 actually, and I trialed with them for a week there. And then after that trial for a week, I didn't get to do any racing, but I did training every day. And the day after, I think it was, or maybe a couple of days after, I got the call up to join for the whole of season 4. And yeah, so that was season 3 and 4. I'm getting my seasons confused. They kind of all blurred into one this last year and a half, but yeah.
It's so hard because they don't run on a calendar year or a seasonal year either. So it's incredibly tough. But you mentioned the female pathway program. I mean, a lot of us are watching more females get involved. Some are saying, oh, it's an insult that there has to be a compulsory female, you know, all that sort of stuff. I mean, we talk about this regularly when I'm with you at SailGP. What are your thoughts on a compulsory female? When will we see maybe 2 women on the boat? And what are you learning through the pathway? I know that's a massive question, but you've got it.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, I just always like to think of it as, yeah, at the start, it was hard for us, obviously, because they made a compulsory spot for women on board the boat. And so you obviously sit there and you're like, okay, well, they have to have us. It's not that they want to. Sometimes you don't feel like that at the start, but it was also hard for the guys because they've been racing these boats for 10 years without 6 people. They've been doing it with 5, quite often 4, 3, like they could sail these boats with 3 people if they wanted. And so it's tricky for them too. So looking at it from both perspectives, I was definitely like obviously stoked at the start to be involved because it was an amazing opportunity, and I'd watched these guys race these boats for years beforehand, and I looked up to them as amazing sailors. And I just sat there and said to myself, like, honestly, like it's going to be hard both ways. You got to look at it from both perspectives. You can't sit there and just kind of be like, well, you told me I have to be on board this boat, so I'm here. You obviously want to come and prove yourself. You want to come in and help the team, which was tricky for us because they've already won 2 seasons already. So you sit there and you're like, what can I help with? But they were obviously tricky to deal with at the start because I don't think any of them had really been on many professional teams with women on board either. But obviously we all have our own skills, and so it's like any sailor jumping on board a boat, male, female, whoever they are, jumping to a team that's already well defined and they all know each other very well. It's going to be tricky for anyone. And so once I think they realized that, they sat there and they're like, all right, well, what do you think your strengths are and what do you think your weaknesses are, and let's see how that can work within the team. And I slowly built from that. But the tricky thing with us on SailGP is we don't have many training days. So yeah, I met the team, sailed with them an hour later after I met them. And then for the next, I was lucky enough, the first event we had 10 days. So I had quite a long lead in, and I got to really kind of stamp my foot on like, oh, this is what I feel confident in doing. This is what I want to learn. I'm not too sure how this will help. But our first regatta we did, I remember talking to Kyle and Tom before the racing, and they just sat me down. They were like, all right, you just talk as much as you think you want to. Pretend you're steering the boat. What would you want to hear? And that was the easiest thing for me to go, okay, because I naturally sailed every boat I've sailed, every like double hander or anyone, or I've sailed a few single handers now, but I've always skippered. So the easiest thing for me to go was, all right, if I was driving the boat, what would I want to hear? And that was the biggest, like the easiest thing for me, because then I just started talking about as if I was driving around the racetrack, what would I want? And we finished the first day of racing and they were like, oh, that was awesome. Or we came out of that and they were like, that was great. And then there was a few things they were like, all right, I can talk about this, so you can talk about this. And that's how we started splitting the role up. But obviously at the start, it was very tricky for everyone involved. And yeah, at the start, I think what I like to say is, yes, they were told we had to be on the boat, but that's okay. I say it a lot to a lot of people I talk to of just say yes to every opportunity, because you never really know where it's going to take you. And I said yes to that. And I sat there and I was like, yeah, they have to have me, but how am I going to make it work? And how am I going to sit there and go, okay, this is an experience to teach you guys that we do have some talent, no matter what it is. Like, it could be something they've never thought about before. And I think it's been almost 2 years now with them. And yeah, they're some of my great friends now. And they really treat you as if you're one of their own. And I'm really lucky of how closely involved I am with the team now. But yeah, obviously at the start it was tricky. But honestly, it's all about experience. That's what I like to say as well, because they've had 10 years on me already before I even stepped on board the boat, in that exact boat. So if we were to say no and complain that we were put on this, or it might look silly or whatever it is, you just have to sit there and be like, well, if we say no to this now, then what happens in 6 years' time when they're like, we're complaining about equality and not having equal playing field? We could have had 6 years of experience now, but we didn't. And so it's like, all right, take any day you can get, learn as much as you can, and maybe in 4 years' time we could be there. But it's just, yeah, take each day as it comes.
And talking, sorry, my dog has now decided to pop up. She's been asleep. Talk about inspiring inclusion. Obviously you're doing an amazing job of that. And something else you've said yes to recently is Team Australia Challenge, which will be our entry in the UniCredit Youth Women's America's Cup and the Puj Women's America's Cup. And technically you qualify for both, which is pretty exciting. You've been in the sim with the girls and the guys. How's that going?
I think this is actually probably one of the most exciting things for us, because all through the youth classes, I've raced all the guys throughout, or when I learned to sail, through to the youth worlds, through to Olympic sailing. It's pretty cool that now I'm sitting there and we go to training every day, and I sit there with the guys I raced with and against when I was 12. And we were treated no different the whole way through. Yeah. Nothing. We raced against them on the same start line, had the same gear all through the youth classes. And now I'm sitting next to them, sailing the boats with them, being put up for selection against them. And it's really cool to see that they don't question it. It's a new generation coming through. I'm not saying that anyone else is different, but it's just the normal now, which is really cool. And I think the best thing for the youth America's Cup, and the women's, of course, but the youth, was the fact that there was no compulsory just crew selection. It was just whoever you think the best in your squad is on. And I think that's really great, because it just sits there and gives you, like, now's our time to be like, all right, we've had the same opportunity in these boats as the guys. And so every time we go to training, we could go the same amount of time. We have the same amount of time learning. And so we sit there and we go up for selection against them, and no one ever questions it in our group, which is great. And I think that's the best thing for us. And I hope it continues like that, because this is the time that we can gain the experience that everyone else gets. And so we just have to put our foot forward or a hand up and be like, yep, pick us. I'll work as hard or harder than the people next to me. And that's all that really matters. No question about what you've done in your past or anything. It's just how much effort are you going to put in now? How quickly have you learned this? And that's what we're obviously being judged on. And so, yeah, it's really cool.
That is really cool. And while we're still talking, Tash, we're going to get everybody brought up on the screen just to finish off with. So if anybody has any burning questions, feel free to ask. We've only got a few minutes left, so we will try. But if we can't, it's just because all of our guests are so amazing. But talk about inspiring inclusion. We've heard from our ramp guests, Amanda and Kate. Thank you, Amanda, even though we couldn't see you, for joining us, and Kate, and they're talking about mentoring programs. We had our gentlemen who are providing opportunities for women to go sailing with them, or even donating boats or organising regattas that are all female, and our female Commodores who are, you know, getting on with the job and being amazing Commodores despite sex. And then we have Tash here at the end, who is basically showing us all that there is a future, there is a cultural change happening, and that glass ceiling is starting to be broken, which is pretty exciting. I feel like this has been quite a cool debate where we've developed our ideas. Actually, Roberto just said, thanks for the great debate, which is a really good word, that we are starting to change, but there's still more work to be done in inspiring inclusion. So thanks everybody so much for joining us tonight. And we're almost running to time. So if there are any last questions, okay, one last question, and anybody can answer. Do you have, to all of the panelists, do you have any insights on how to get over both the male and the female skepticism that might be involved in between the abilities of a male and a female? Tash, you'll probably answer this differently. You'll be, what skepticism?
Well, there isn't. It's just you got to beat them at what they think they're best at. That's the easiest thing, to just prove yourself. It's always, everyone laughs, but I think just, go head to head and back yourself. And if you've done your training, there's no reason why you can't compete in the same competitions, in the same questions, or whatever it is. I always just like sitting there and having a little laugh after. Like, a lot of the girls in the GP circuit, we're really good friends and we hang out a lot and go winging or whatever it is. But it's just really funny how you can really just get someone to just shut up if you just beat them at what they obviously think they're decent at. Whatever it is.
I'm not laughing, Tash. We're inspired. Don't worry. That's the whole point of this. Does anybody else have any thoughts on basically breaking the skepticism? Kate's got some thoughts.
Yeah, look, one of the clearinghouse actually did this report, and one of the barriers for female participation was not having enough role models. So having people like Tash is really going to help support our next generation of young women and men come into sailing as well. But I do think that it's culture. So top-down approach. If the club is on board, if you've got general managers, if you've got Commodores that are in line with this and pick people up on their language and pick people up on their inclusion strategies, then things are going to change.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, and I think you just do it. You just go out and do it. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to be as good as them if you put the work in. The blokes have to put the work in. It's an attitude of mind of females, unfortunately, and I say this in 2024, and it gives me no pleasure to say it, that we are still fighting that barrier, and part of the barrier and part of the skepticism comes from within females' brain. Correct, Nick? So for me, as a Commodore, I don't see any of that with my young female trainees and people who are doing the instructor courses through us, because not because I do it deliberately, but they see me there, and I don't think they look at me as a role model or a trailblazer, but they just think, oh, she can do that, I can do that. So I think it's just, it totally comes to culture and attitude of mind. Just stand up to them, for goodness sake.
I love it. And for those who don't know, all the boys call Tash TikTok, because she's always on to them about the time and getting everything right. And so she's holding her own. But what's the real reason? That's what I always think in my mind. Because you're young?
Yeah, they always tease me for being young. I'm the child of the team, apparently.
But yeah, I'm part of the
savor that moment, Tash. Savor that moment.
Part of the
one day you'll
TikTok
be
generation.
The TikTok generation. And now I just want to say a very big thanks to all of our amazing panelists who are inspiring inclusion in their own ways, and everybody who's joined. You have an interest in SheSails and seeing equality, so I'm sure you're all doing what you can in your own ways as well. And a big thanks to Team Australia Challenge. They've donated 4 lucky door prizes tonight, so I've drawn them out of a hat. Thank you, Axel. And Simone Doherty from South Brisbane Sailing Club, Cheryl Stone from Port Stephens Yacht Club, Claire Bamford from Blairgowrie Yacht Squadron, and Sally Airy from Port Esperance Sailing Club. If you can get in touch with me, we'll make sure we get you a Team Australia Challenge water bottle. So, and if you're not following Team Australia Challenge or SailGP yet, you should be. And I'm looking forward to seeing how far we can go in the next little while with everything at the elite end, so that we can keep inspiring all the way down to grassroots. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll
thank
see you
you,
soon.
everyone, and a big thank you to Nick, and happy International Women's Day tomorrow.
Happy International
If anyone
Women's Day.
is holding an event, good luck with your events tomorrow, and please tell us about them so we can showcase them and have those inspirational role models, which you all are as panelists. So thank you, and thank you, Nick.
I think projects such as SheSails and the Magenta Project are doing such great things of making opportunities open to female sailors to get their foot in the door and build some experience.
It's so great to see all of the initiatives that Australian Sailing is putting in place to achieve gender parity.
And then, on the other hand, it's really amazing to see the Volvo Ocean Race, the America's Cup and SailGP make space for female athletes right at the pinnacle of the sport.
It's going to be a massive moment for women in sailing. We've been waiting for this moment, we've been training for this moment. We've always had the Olympics and it's been expanding, but it's a time where women have the first look into one of the pinnacles in our sport.
Sailing is an incredible sport, like you all know, and we have the ability to be super inclusive. I cannot wait to see where sailing and where Australian sailing takes us in the future.
And so I think, between the grassroots and those top entities working together, making space for female sailors is really what's going to help us balance out and the gender imbalance at the moment in sailing.
And it's not just about us, it's about the future generations and having something for them to aspire to and keep on pushing to be the best sailors they can be.
Happy International Women's Day.